Okay, so next we have Brad Conyers from Espressonet. Brad is also on the committee of the Sutherland Shire Business Chamber. He is a telecommunications service provider located at Miranda. As a service provider, Brad is passionate about empowering local business to thrive through superior connectivity and communication tools. His goal is to see you succeed in your industry, and his desire is for Espressonet to be the conduit to help make that happen. So he's going to be talking about what is 5G and also how to get the most out of remote working. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for that intro. So local business is what I'm all about, and being a telecommunications provider, being here on the ground, helping businesses is exactly what I'm about. So I like keeping businesses connected, and making your net work is some of my favourite catch lines at the moment. So I'll see if I can move this on. Okay, so I'm assuming everyone can see that. We're just going through what is this 5G. What does the G mean? It means generation. So as you may remember, we've gone through a 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. So we're talking about the 5th generation of mobile broadband. So we're all quite familiar when, well, I hope you are, when 4G was launched. We were seeing broadband speeds on our mobile devices and also our home devices that we hadn't seen before. You know, we were getting the 30 meg, 60 meg downloads, and then approaching 150 up to 300 meg downloads since 4G's been around. So that's what the 5th generation, that's what the G stands for. It often can be confused with 5 gigahertz, which is a Wi-Fi frequency that's often used by our routers. I quite often hear people interchange the 5G with 5th generation of mobile. But anyway, I'll try and keep it high level to make sure we don't go down a plethora of technical discussion here, which as a technologist I have a tendency of doing. So if anyone thinks that I'm rambling on too much, just raise your hand and I'll stop and I'll move back to normal English. But anyway, I thought I'd just show in the Shire, it's important to know where is the 5G at the moment. Now this is a coverage map of Telstra's coverage of 5G in the Shire. So as you can see, it's quite, I'd say almost sporadic. It's a very funny coverage map because 5G uses a very high frequency, way higher than what we're used to. Now, the higher the frequency you go, the less likely it is to penetrate through buildings, and it has less coverage. So what you can see here is the coverage around just around Miranda and around Engadine, Loftus, or Sutherland here, and then something out at Barton Ridge. That's probably on your building, Bruno, but what happens here is that that's where the towers are already been installed with 5G capability, and you can see how the coverage is impacting as such. Here's our friends at Optus. That's their 5G coverage. As again, you can see very sort of measle-looking map, and the coverage there is very, very limited. So if you sort of think about, you know, if you're on a mobile device and driving between Cronulla and Woolooware, primarily using 5G, there's a big black spot there as you drive down the Kingsway until you get to Caringbah Station or thereabouts, and then you move on. So at the moment, 5G for the Shire isn't really it's what we call a contiguous. It doesn't have contiguous network coverage, and it's probably best for devices at home that aren't moving. So we call them fixed wireless devices. Anyway, here's all the towers, different towers throughout the Shire. You can see here, this is where my cursor is down here. This is at South Cronulla at the Brentwood Apartments. this is where the Telstra's, Optus's 5G, as you can see there, that's where the coverage is. If I just go back to that previous one, there's the corresponding coverage from 5G, and that's where the tower is actually located there. So this shows all the RF in the Shire. The blue ones are the train radio. It shows a lot of things, and it also shows proposed sites as well, because I can certainly guarantee there's no tower there in the national park. Okay, so that's a little bit about 5G. It is a mobile broadband device, and what it does, it encourages us to be thinking about future connectivity and the use cases of 5G. Now, primarily, the best thing about it is that it's super fast, it's got heaps and heaps of capacity, and it has a very, very low latency. So we're talking 4 milliseconds or less in latency. So when you have latency that's very, very quick, it means that you can do real-time activities. And the use cases that we're looking at is the autonomous vehicles in this case, where the vehicles all have proximity to one another, plus they have a 5G connection, which also allows further interactions between the vehicles and also location and what's going on with that particular vehicle. So as you can appreciate, when I'm showing you a map that doesn't have contiguous network coverage of 5G, obviously if a vehicle relied upon 100% 5G coverage for driving around in an autonomous state, that's not going to work as such. But going forward, what happens is that the vehicle doesn't need to have contiguous coverage. It can fall back onto 4G, it can fall back onto 3G, but it can operate quite well talking to all the other vehicles around it using onboard communication devices. So that's the first one there. Hopefully that's triggering plenty of thought discussion for you. The next one here is our VR, our virtual reality world. This becomes a huge thing for, it becomes a thing for like, particularly for businesses, for, if you think about architectural planning, things where you're not able to see something that hasn't been built yet, but graphically things can be shown and changed in the real time, and the potential customers can be reviewing something using some sort of virtual reality. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ridiculous goggles people put on, but it gives us a in-depth understanding of how something may be visually before it's actually built, and the interaction is all real time. So I'm also looking at what is known as, I'm going to get the correct term for it, but as I think about that, it basically means that when you have a PC and you've got all your apps loaded on the PC, what will change with 5G is that all the apps will remain in the cloud, and you basically stream the app to your PC. And if you can think about the concept that brings, means that the idea of a PC anywhere will change, and all you need is a device to have an internet connection, and then you are fully connected with all the apps that you'll ever need, which lends us into remote working in a future state. So that's the virtual reality world. And the other piece is, here's the, so it has a high medical understanding as well. And I wanted to touch upon that because we do live in with Sutherland Hospital and the private hospitals and all the general practices that we have available to us in the Shire. We have a fairly significant medical precinct, and remote operations using 5G means that obviously a doctor here can be operating remotely, and you can see the team there on the other screen is supporting the robot that this guy's controlling, that maybe the surgeon here is controlling on the patient. So obviously we've if there was an outage of the 5G and the doctor wasn't able to take control, obviously there's a team of medical professionals there that can obviously step in and look after the patient's well-being at that point in time. But it gives you, hopefully this is just triggering some thoughts. And for those who are entrepreneurial and thinking about how do I support this sort of technology going forward, and talking about it, getting it out there, yeah, it's quite a significant change that we will see coming more and more closer to all of us. And it might not be too far away where we may be talking to someone about an operation and they said that the operation was performed by a robot that was being controlled remotely. So I think we're just going to see this more and more. It also plays itself to a lot of heavy industry like mining and all that sort of stuff as well, where a lot of the trucks and tractors and farming and everything is actually quite well remote controlled these days. They actually do that with their own on-site 4G and 5G networks that they own themselves to make sure they've got that contiguous network around the site. Anyway, so that's a good idea, and it's very, very close. The Internet of Things is, I'm just going to throw that up as a concept, which is well and truly underway in Australia, and there's multiple use cases that are already underway and in full production. And again, before I open up all the Pandora's box about what IoT is, I just want to give you an idea there that any device that has a battery on it can potentially be an IoT device, and we can get, it could be a tap washer that is leaking. If that is if that's something that sends an alarm to say, hey, we've got a leak here, it then triggers a response from a service person. So just to give you the most basic concept. Anyway, here we are. We've got a remote worker here. I'm sure everyone on the call has now experienced some type of remote working. So they're either employed and being sent home to do work, or they may have decided to operate their business from home, or they may have decided to outsource their business to different locations around the world. It could mean, just the idea that we're not all centralised in the same space to do the work of the business. So I've also noticed over this time remote working isn't for everyone, and some businesses don't have the ability to remote work, and some people, and I know Joel probably has more use cases on this, but some people don't or are constructed in a way with their natural talents to remotely work. They should be around people and not put in isolation. So again, technology is a means of supporting remote work, but remote work in itself is obviously a bigger concept to understand. So technologists, we love clouds and lines and dots. I just wanted to show that it's all about bringing, you could be on a mobile device at home, you could be a remote office. This is talking about, we've got all these cloud devices and, 365, we've got all our CRMs in the cloud, Amazon, all those words. And there's just an ability to connect back in. So with this, I've helped a number of businesses with their remote workers, and it actually threw up a couple of good challenges for remote working. And I just wanted to share that. I've got my little five tips for remote working in business, and I'll be finishing on this slide. But this is just to help us as business owners understand. If we're going to do remote working, no doubt you're underway already, and you've probably faced some of these challenges already, and you may have already solved them. But it's still good to be thinking about if you've had a challenge with it, how to sort of obviously talk to technologists, IT support people, telco providers to make sure that you're getting the collective experience of a lot of use cases and bringing it to your business. And quite often, it's not an expensive discussion. It's actually just a concept and how to do something in that we know that works. So anyway, we're talking about using a VPN connection. This gives us a secure tunnel through the internet. So it means that you can connect to the office and no one else can interact or intercept these interactions. And that could be everything from email right through to connection to your server, and all the files that you transfer between the office and your remote location are secure using a VPN. So that's the first thing. Two-factor authentication is mainly around a lot to do with our emails these days, and you'll see it. The most common use case for this is banking. Is when you go to make a payment, that you get an SMS and you have to put in the 6-digit number back into the app to make sure that you are in fact the same person requesting the transaction or payment. This has been a massive case of fraud for a long time. Emails being sent out and asking business owners to change the banking details to a fraudulent person. This two-factor authentication has come about because of all of those unfortunate cases that have occurred before. In the telco business, we deal with number porting, particularly for mobile. So someone steals your identity, then tries to steal your mobile number, makes a bank transaction and gets the SMS sent to a new mobile phone on your old mobile number, which often can cause an issue, and you find out about it later on when you can't make calls and your bank account is at zero. So the other thing is with all your equipment, it just needs to be quite consistent, like I'm in the same operating system across all your devices, and just to make sure that your IT is actually up to date, and that we've got all the latest patches and software available, and they have been upgraded on all the PCs, because quite often we can see if everyone's got different. It's quite fine to have all different types of machines, but you just want a consistent operating systems across the board, and that allows for consistent connections and no unexplained dropouts, unexplained connections, unexplained all the strange stuff that goes on with technology. It fails when you need it the most. Having consistent stuff across the network is great. Okay, use Cloud Connect applications. This means that you're not using a connection back to the office, but you're actually using a connection to the cloud via any internet connection. This is also a very, very efficient way of getting a connection through to your online storage, online document repositories, and like CRMs, like your QuickBooks, your like all your accounting packages, everything cloud-based is absolutely excellent. And because I'm a telco and I love telephones, and I still like the concept of people having telephones on their desk, telephones on their PC, and mobiles, I always put in a little telco thing here. It's about having cloud-based phones. Now, again, we've moved a long way from having PBX systems located on the premise now, and for the last 7 years I've been in business, I've always used cloud-based phones, which straight away allows you for remote working without having to use these big systems and trying to relocate them. Okay, well that is my fault. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Brad. Excellent. That was fantastic. Now we've got